Looks like we are live.
It's happening.
I'm Jen. This is Corey, and I'm going to ask him a whole bunch of questions because this is the awesome show, and I have so many questions. You have no idea. So, Corey.
Yes.
What are you grateful for right now?
I'm shit. Sometimes that question gets me, like, right in the face. Sometimes that question is like, I'm grateful for coffee right now. And it, that's fun, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it sneaks up on you. I'm grateful that I get to have a much more consistent relationship with people like my cousin Jen and her family. But like in like what time is it? 2:31 kind of way.
Yes. Woo! Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. I am grateful for this opportunity. I have no idea where it's going or what this will look like, 1 month, 6 months from now, but here I am. So here we go. How has being gratitude focused changed your life?
Completely. I'll give you a longer answer. I remember doing goals and gratitude. Just knowing the science behind it. And watching TED Talks because that was basically what we did with goals and gratitude. We list 3 things we were grateful for online, and Rhodey's like literally just like crawling into my lap, which he never does. Hello, hi. Apparently, someone needs some attention right now.
Excellent.
Wow. Yeah, and so that I think was a really kind of fun and interesting experiment. That's when I was first started going live at all, and just making ridiculous, like, I'm gonna go live for 90 days straight, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was good. Met a lot of really interesting and awesome people, and sort of kind of got my feet wet in that whole thing. And then the last crypto cycle happened 2017 2018 ish, right? And got super busy, and that was really fun. And then there's a couple of years where I was busy, and that was really fun. And then I had a bout of apparently actual clinical depression, which is a whole thing that I didn't grok at all until it happened. And gratitude is how I got out, basically, right? I did some cognitive behavioral therapy, which I highly recommend. Like, don't anyone think about because like I sort of like the stigma, like I don't want to have a therapist, that stupid shit, blah blah blah, right? All that stuff. I was that guy. I'm an idiot. Like, cognitive behavioral therapy is great science. It's awesome. You basically start, remapping your brain slowly but surely. You can start kind of digging yourself out. And in that process, I'm living in Miami. I didn't have a schedule like I do now. I didn't really have anything to do except like the dishes and laundry every once in a while. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to go out to the beach and meet the sunrise every morning and list out some things that I'm grateful for. Because I know that stuff works. And in the course of 90 days, that worked on me, right? And then we started doing it in the cathedral 1.0, and inviting a few people out and having some fun with that. And of course, that became Cathedral 2.0, and now it's the family thing. Everybody comes along, and it turned into a metaverse that is directly competing with companies that are valued in the billions of dollars. So it's been a whole thing. Gratitude practice myself kind of saved me, right? Gratitude practice as a community might change everything.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
And for a complete twist, why do you want to live on a catamaran?
180.
Of course, there's going to be a lot of that.
So I've kind of always wanted to live on a boat. You're asking sneaky questions. I know part of the reason why I want to live on a vehicle is because I did it. I lived in a camperized bus in the Arctic for many years, and I have fond memories of that. I guess for me, it comes down to like I could almost picture an exact moment. And there's a bunch of them, but they kind of stick out when you're under sail and there's no motor sound, right? I grew up like kneeboarding and wakeboarding, and there's like, it's the obnoxious sound of the motor or whatever, right? But when you're doing like, 7, 8 knots and there's just the waves, it's exhilarating and peaceful at the same time, which is a kind of a weird combination. And it's become this, I think, image in my head that's connected with, Michelle and having kind of the last 10 years of us being together, where I've been running Moon, right? I'm a musician, but I want to see how quickly we can, retire Michelle, who was kind of making all the money for the majority of our marriage, and which she was totally fine with. And I'm like, well, I have this time, so like, and I'm a musician who makes like $100 a gig. Like, how do I like really fuck shit up? And so it's become, this symbol almost too of getting both of our time back, and living that time to the absolute maximum. And to me, that's sort of the symbol of it, but it's also super fun, and I want to do it anyway.
That's so much fun. If you had a choice, if there were no obstacles, no pandemic, no nothing, no paperwork, no visas, anything like that, where would you sail to?
Like first?
Yeah. Where's the first place you're going?
I mean, honestly, our plan is to, probably be in the Caribbean, like from Puerto Rico on down. And that's just, because it's easy, right? Like easy sailing. And also it's the Caribbean. You can't really go wrong, right?
Super true.
And for me, even, we've been talking about like if wax, moons, which it very well might, right? We might actually be able to do that this year. Like we might be able to move on to a sailboat at the end of the year, which is fucking bananas, but it's possible. And then, we're not going to go very far because, I'm committed to working on the Uplift for quite a while. And so even though we would be living on a boat, like we would need stable internet access, which, interestingly, Elon Musk might be providing with Starlink, which is kind of fun. So we wouldn't be kind of going anywhere crazy. So yeah, just beating around all the beaches in the Caribbean, of which there are gazillions.
That's fantastic. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's like your backyard is the ocean. Like people pay, literally millions of dollars to live 6 blocks away, right next to the beach, and that's like beaches with a bunch of people on it. And like, yeah, that's cool, but we could spend way less than that, and our backyard and front yard would be the beach, which just seems better to me.
Yes, definitely. All right. If you could make a gigantic mess right now with anything, anywhere, anyone, what would that look like?
A gigantic mess. I think the Uplift team would probably say I'm already doing it. I am fond of the move fast and break things, although we're getting ahead of a lot of things, so that might not really make a whole lot of sense. It definitely made sense in the beginning. I was like, whatever duct tape and stuff we could pull off the shelf is what we're going to do to make this thing real for people, and that kind of worked. So biggest mess though. It's weird. The first thing that comes to mind is I would actually probably sell all of our stuff and move us into a van or a small boat sooner, which isn't like, that's actually sort of anti-mess, but like as far as like the structure of our lives is probably the first thing that I would destroy.
I like that answer.
Cool.
Why is that so super important to you?
I've never been a fan of the paradigms that people take for granted. I mean, what we can be certain of is that this is probably it, right? You're going to get like a bunch of decades and then that's it. So making those as interesting as humanly possible has always seemed like a really, really good idea. And watching, and I used to get really, really down on traditions. I used to think all traditions were stupid unless they could prove themselves. I don't necessarily think that anymore because I'm in the sort of business of creating them a bunch. Don't tell anyone that's what I'm doing. Happy sunrise. But yeah, so, I do want to make sure that at least for myself, any sort of organized, any way that we're living, it runs through the gauntlet of being firmly tested. And so that's all assumptions, right? Do you need to live in an apartment or a house? No, you don't. Right. And that's actually one I did test. Right. So, and it was sort of interesting. So yeah, that's probably why. Knocking stuff over to see if you actually need it, I guess.
I like that. Okay, so let's see how much grammar you remember here. Pick a noun.
Pick a noun. Trust. Is that a noun? It is,
yeah,
right?
It's not a noun. Person, place, or thing. Trust is a good one, though.
Cool.
But no, a noun.
That wasn't a noun? Isn't it an object? Technically?
No, because you can't. If you can't pick it up and eat it, it's not an object. It's a concept. Does that count?
But you could measure. You could measure it, and if it can be measured, is it not a noun?
But you can't measure it scientifically. Does it count? I don't know. I can use it.
I think I could probably use Bitcoin to show you that it can actually blockchain. Period. It could actually probably be measured with a number, and that number is about $54,000 per Bitcoin.
That is interesting, and
I pick a better one if I'm
that's okay. Pick a verb?
Pick a verb. Okay. Shiza. That's not a verb.
Not really.
Expanding or expand, I guess would be the verb. Not
okay. And then one of the following: who, what, when, where, why, or how.
I'll pick one of those. Why?
Yeah. Why? Why do you think that the trust of the general public will expand enough to accept the concept of the uplift?
How do you do that?
Professionalism.
What just happened? Okay, could you repeat that and like real slow? Because I have to get past the fact that I'm amazed that you just pulled that off so quickly.
It was a why, right?
Yes.
Why do you believe that the trust of the people will expand enough to accept the uplift?
I mean, that's a fantastic question that I wrote. No, you absolutely did. I believe that the trust will expand quickly enough to make the uplift gain traction because we've seen the beginning parts of the exponential curve of that already. Right? The focus on, I was actually talking to John from Boyd, who's an app on EOS, really good. And his team has been telling him, you got to come over to the Uplift. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. And he's a technical guy. He's like, they haven't done anything. They've just attached Minecraft to some NFTs. And he's right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he said in this meeting, he's like, what you guys have done is just made people believe it. And to me, I think that's we have the vision of what we want to produce, which is a metaverse that serves us and has value, and is connected to NFTs that can be buyable, sellable, tradable outside of the game or any construct, because we won't always live just on Minecraft. But we focused on art because it's kind of all we had. It's not all we had, but it's what we had, right? And Blue and I doing art drops, and then our community doing the Burning Man and doing other kinds of builds or whatever. So we were imbuing this space with value that was then tangible, right? That got sold for XYZ number of wax, which is XYZ number of dollars, which is that's the trust. That's what I'm going back to, right? Like people have, and I think mostly it's unconscious, but when you see somebody spend 200,000 or 300,000 wax or $100,000 on a piece of art in a Minecraft server, that gives people pause and has this sort of property of making other people believe it too. So that's how it started, and we've seen where that's gone, right? Like we sold a little bit of land for like $100 a piece, and now they're all worth $1,000 a piece, right? That's because people want it, and that trust goes down to, do you can you trust enough in the ownership capacity of that to do that, right? So that's a quantifiable thing that has a number attached to it, and it's the lowest common denominator cost for every rail piece in the uplift, right? Like that to me, that's the number. And so people believe it, and of course I feel that as an intense, not a bad, but an intense pressure to make it real, and I know that we can. And so, then that just becomes, I think, a virtuous cycle of people are believing in us to the tune of however much currency, which again is all just belief and trust anyway, they throw at the system, and then it's on us to basically just create bigger and bigger foundations underneath that, which is happening. Like that, you guys see less than 5% of the value that we're building, and that makes me very excited.
That is very exciting. I like that.
Here all week.
Awesome.
That question, like, I can't seriously, like, I yeah, professional indeed. I can't wait for you to do that to somebody else. Like, I'm gonna tune into this show just to see Jen pull the freaking ninja shit on people. Like
that's gonna happen.
Yeah. That's worth the price of admission right there.
Okay. So if it's been shown that we can do the thing, and that we have all these great ideas, and that everything is possible, and it is going to expand, and there is ownership stability, what might hold people back?
I think people not understanding why NFTs are interesting and valuable is one. And I think it's understandable. Until people get it, they won't get it, which is a dumb sentence now that I've said it out loud. Yeah, logical and redundant. Anyway, so you need to understand the technology, where like no one needs to understand the technology that is money, right? We grew up with that. That's easy, right? But understanding the technology of Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is money and is also much more interesting than the dollar, that's harder. And then attach that to an NFT where people are just like, oh, is that just like, that's just like a picture on a server? Like, why would I pay money for that, right? People need to get that. And that boils down to trust, right? So what are we trusting about it? Well, we're trusting that information is on a blockchain that is immutable. It means it cannot be changed, right? To change anything on a blockchain, you'd have to have literally everybody, all the block producers that are running that blockchain change at the same time, and they can't, and so people can trust it. It's not like just having a thing on a server somewhere. That ownership fundamentally is now baked into the math of the blockchain. It cannot be changed, right? So when you say, okay, I want a mint one Jen NFT, you know that it's Jen's collection. You can track it back to the wallet. You can actually see all of that stuff on the blockchain. So as collectors, you can have a not a high degree, a total degree of certainty that its chain of custody has been consistent, right? So like, was it those dudes in Vegas with the pawn shop? I think it's just called freaking Pawn Stars or something. There we go, Pawn Stars. They had this big show about, okay, well, what's the chain of custody, and like, is this a real collectible? That will never be interesting in the NFT space because we just know that it's true. It takes 5 seconds, right? And so that, I think, not understanding that it would slow people down. For the uplift itself, I think a really interesting where my biggest concern was, I think people coming into this space would have would be able to reasonably question it. Like, we're built on Minecraft, right? That's a single point of potential failure that we think about a lot. Now, they've signed deals with Engine, which is a company that, quite frankly, is not as cool as we are. And they started doing some charitable things together, yada yada. We're doing those charitable things already. So and we're reaching out to them. We're making sure we're on the right side of the end user license agreement. Like, we're doing all the things that we could imagine would, when we get Microsoft's attention. Of course, they own Mojang and Minecraft. That conversation is going to go really well. And of course, the fact that our parent company is Legend, and it's all the people from Apple and Netflix and Pixar and I'm dropping some names here, but it's true. But like, we're connected to some very, 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 very big people in sort of the entertainment and corporate space now, and so like, I'm no longer worried about that. But reasonable people would question it who don't know all the things that I know.
Okay. I'm going to change topic for a moment, and then we'll get back to that, because I did have a couple follow-up questions, but they kind of fit in, and I think people are probably going to want some definitions if it's our family who's watching. So
Okay.
We'll take 2 seconds, let everybody's brain absorb that, and talk about something completely different.
Okay.
When I write this up for the blog later,
yes,
which I'm going to, what music should I be listening to, and why?
We Are the Tide, because it gets me riled up.
Okay.
It's was the culmination of the community vibe that I think is the actual value proposition of the Uplift. And if that bleeds into what you're writing, then I think we will all be served by it.
Okay. Excellent. I'm curious about that too. So the community aspect of the Uplift, that can't be as easily quantified in the same way. It's community is not an NFT. It's not something that can be necessarily traded for money. But in order to be a part of the community, we're saying you should really just buy some land and join us. How can that community aspect be used to show the value of the NFT as more than just a token?
I think because it's a place, right? Like, the NFT is like an access means you're the boss of that area, right? And I think where it really started to sink in with me was the conversation we first started having around the Burning Man monument, right? And so we auctioned off that, even before we had NFTs. It's now minted as an NFT. It connected. We minted it as an NFT. It just wasn't connected to the regions yet because we hadn't solved that yet. And Ken Bozak said he wanted to buy it and not press the button, right? And of course, Russ, your super awesome husband, created this button that would then light the whole thing on fire, right? And so Ken was like, I want to buy this thing. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to press the button, maybe forever. And that's when I was like, I mean, that's his right. And everybody started like, oh, well, maybe we could make him do it. No. He's going to own that monument, all the ground down from the bedrock all the way up to the top of the sky, period. Right. And so that became a lot more interesting to me, right? Because it showed the value proposition. You spend, whether it's $10 or ultimately, I think it was like $4,700 that the Blue Wizard paid for that NFT. That of course all went to charity. People started thinking about it differently. I think that the smart people are thinking about their rail plots in terms of how they can make them, interesting or beautiful or useful, and it stems from that, right? And again, there's other groups that delving into the metaverse space that have kind of proven what ends up being low-hanging fruit or what ends up being interesting, right? Decentraland, I think, was not doing all that well until they started doing NFT galleries, and then suddenly everybody wanted a piece of it, right? Which is why that's something that we focused on early on. Like, we wanted to make sure that we had at least a representation of an NFT gallery, and that caught a lot of people's attention, right? Because if we can do that, you can do anything with a storefront and right? Like it just, that's where it starts to get kind of a lot more interesting. So yeah, and again, like that's the social proof thing too, right? Like if you're neighbors with Ken Bozak or Boyd or the Wax Plot or whatever it is, right? I think it ends up getting more interesting, and kind of people believe it more because they see other people believing it more, right? and then interestingly enough, everyone believing it more makes it true. So
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
Just wondering here. I'm curious. There are comments. Oh boy.
Oh yes.
Right. There's all kinds of comments here. I'm just wondering if anybody was asking any questions. Oh, there's somebody else who's asking the similar things I am. How to get people in who don't really understand the crypto or the NFTs or any of that. So I think we're going to get to some of that. Let me see here in one moment. So you have experience. This isn't your first time launching a thing that could potentially be related to this space. You created Shipple, which was delightful, and you created Chirp, which was delightful. So
yeah, it was actually, I was on the team that created Chirp, but I definitely didn't create it. That was Kurt and his team, but I was there for it.
That's still fantastic. You're the one who told me about it, and it would have been an interesting experience to start with an idea and end up with a community of thousands of people.
I'm sorry, what?
You started with ideas and you ended up with communities of thousands of people. And what I noticed on the outside looking in, after Shipple, when Chirp happened, a whole bunch of the Shipple people followed you over to Chirp because they liked you. They believed what you were selling. And I don't want to say that they necessarily believed the product, they believed you. So you had created credibility for yourself anyway. So when you started the Uplift, I'm again seeing some of those same groups of people are here and they're happy and everybody's having a good time. What experience, what lessons did you learn from starting those that apply to the Uplift?
I like that question. I just saw a comment I wanted to touch in on. Naturan, you just said Engine JumpNet was released for beta testers. Its sidechain removes these gas prices, which is amazing. That's actually why I told Engine I wouldn't use them, because I was actually gonna contract them to create the Uplift, but nope. Infinity is coming out anyway. Their API is easy to code to integrate with. We're bringing people on, Nichiren, to start working on that. If you could DM me everything you would want from that, that would be fantastic, because we're gonna start making that happen. Okay, sorry. So why I think the first thing that came to mind as far as like why people might be believing me about this, I get super excited about stuff, and that's fun, right? And that creates like a wake, and people can kind of join me in that wake, and that can be kind of fun. I think what's critical to me is, well, as Shipple as an example, the second you get Shipple in a cryptocurrency wallet with other cryptocurrency, now you're like, oh shit, this is real. So for me, I look for the oh shit, this is real moment, because I could talk all day, as has been demonstrated, but I have to get people who are coming along in the wake on this crazy journey with me to get to those holy shit, this is real moments, right? Like, I just sold an NFT for how much, right? Or, I just bought one and it gave me this thing, and now I can do this stuff, and people are just sending me Aether every hour. Are you kidding? And nope, right? So that's what it is, right? It's like being excited on one side, which is fun anyway, right? I love getting excited about this stuff because it's cool. But then what people don't necessarily see is I spend 12 hours a day building and or finding ways to get people to intersect with those holy shit moments. And I think that just has a compound effect.
Yes. I don't type as fast as you think.
No, hey, that's okay. This is like having an interview with like an actual journalist who's gonna like use journalist ninja skills and everything.
Yeah, I did that for a career once.
I know. Man, I'm excited
cool.
that like that's gonna get applied to our community space. Like, talk about an extensive amount of value add. It's gonna be.
I hope so.
No, don't. I don't hope. It just is.
I have a lot of hope.
I believe it.
Okay, well that's good. So, we're gonna back up here. So for all the people who are watching who are like family, NFTs, non-fungible token. What does that mean?
So it's fungible.
Non-fungible. Okay, so I got that part wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, non-fungible.
Let's start with a fungible token. So a fungible token is you can have as many of the same thing, as there are in the pile, and they're all the same. So every Bitcoin is exactly the same as every other Bitcoin. That is a fungible token, right? A non-fungible token, it's just itself. It is only itself. It will only ever be itself, period, right? So you can have 1,000 NFTs. They can have the same picture on them, but they are all a different min number, or they're like a different specific item, right? That's why, we can have 3,000 land NFTs, but they really are one thing attached to one thing, using our system then to give people ownership over that thing. Or like, for example, I minted an Our Planet NFT today using their like whiz bang generator situation, right? And it's a mint number 1, and that's like baller. And the only reason why that's interesting is because there's going to be thousands of them. That's the first one, and it's a provable first one. It's non-fungible. It is like these other things, but it is not those other things. It's just itself.
That's pretty cool.
I think so. We're building the entire future on it.
Well, I hope so. For those of us who are as clueless as I am, how do you describe a token? What is a token? Why do I care about tokens?
So the dollar is a token, right? It just was like the one that everyone kind of understands and knows. It's not a physical thing anymore. It's just a number in an account, right? And so that lives on a spreadsheet, and if things move around, that number moves around, and we could think of that as a token. I think it makes even more sense when you start thinking about blockchain, but Doge, they call it a coin. It's a token that lives on that chain, right? Or Bitcoin, or Ethereum, or Shipple for that matter, right? So it's just, I think the way I have sort of thought about it is like token is basically the same as a coin. But when you start talking to blockchain people, like NFTs, that's kind of a token too. It's just a different kind of token that's a one-off, right? So then, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure that I helped there.
But I think that's starting to kind of make more sense, which is good. Okay. Not only for me, but if I'm trying to explain it to anyone else, that's helpful. Okay. So what the heck is this blockchain thing you keep talking about? Is it a necklace you wear with some bling on it?
Yeah.
Bitcoin bling?
Bitcoin bling. Mm-hmm. So there's some really cool like 3 to 5 minute videos on what the hell is a blockchain you can watch on YouTube. They're gonna describe it better than I will do here. So if anyone has any questions about that, like seriously go watch like what's a blockchain, right? Or even like what is Bitcoin, because you'll end up learning about it a little bit. So think of it like almost like a Google spreadsheet or a balance sheet for an amount of money or thing, right? If you have that balance sheet on one computer, like somebody could hack it and change the totals on it, right? So like the amount of wax that you have, and the amount of wax that I have, and the amount of wax that Sue has, that's all on this spreadsheet. And if it's on one spreadsheet, it's not necessarily secure. And if I change it on my spreadsheet, but you don't change it on your spreadsheet, what the totals are, like now we have different totals. And that means that as a function of a repository of value, we're failing, right? So what a blockchain does is it takes hundreds or thousands of spreadsheets and has a block of that spreadsheet produced every amount of time, right? So for Bitcoin, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it is, and all the transactions that happen in that space get thrown onto this spreadsheet that is a block. And then when that block is done, it makes sure that as many of the top block producers that it can ping all agree, okay, this is all the same. It closes it off and it attaches it to the chain. So you have blocks in a chain. And now you have, up to thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of computers that are running this blockchain software that all agree totally that the ledger that happened in that 10-minute of time is exactly the same, right? And now changing that, you'd have to change it everywhere all at once, which is like effectively impossible, right? Which is why this piece of software is such a dramatic change in how we think about things, because we used to have to trust banks. We used to have to trust in companies or gatekeepers of information. And now, because of this like math hack, and whether it's proof of work or proof of stake or whatever it is, these different ways of organizing blockchains to make sure that it's distributed, right? Software really does provide that layer now. That is quantifiable trust, and why I called it a noun. And it does have a monetary value, and it's the market cap of cryptocurrency.
That's kind of fantastic. So,
and we don't even know what that's going to look like 10 years from now. Like the amount of things that's going to touch. That's why crypto people get like so like ranty, like torch wielding lunatics, which I count myself among, because it could easily eat every bank to the point where banks weren't a thing anymore because we don't need them. Right? Like software can give you a house loan far better than a dude down the street at Bank of America. And then we're the bank. And that trust layer that required the banks to be there is actually just now software that we can actually trust even more than the banks, which is interesting.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, I have a couple more technical questions and then getting into the interesting question related to what you just said. Two more terms that could be defined here. When you're talking about an NFT being an asset, how are you defining asset?
So it's a thing that you own. And like the simplest way to think about it is if you buy a baseball card, you own that baseball card. This is just a digital version of it that is also doubling as a deed in a metaverse. As an example, right? But like the art, well, or even like I could send you an MP3 and that's, right? But if I send you a 1 of 1,000, MP3 music video of We Are the Tide, and it's instantaneously valued and priced so that you could sell it on the open market, it's a different thing than an MP3.
And the original artist still retains the copyright. And because it's on the blockchain distributed amongst all the many thousands of computers the data is, does that mean that it's not just suddenly going to go poof if one person decides they're not doing it anymore?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Okay. One of the concerns I've heard about NFTs is that if you don't own the physical thing, how do you guarantee that it won't just disappear? And I think you answered that with the business about the blockchain. It's not just on the cloud somewhere. It's
with the art. This is actually something that is actually important and interesting. So a lot of the NFTs on Ethereum, the image or the audio that is attached to that NFT when you see it is hosted on a private server. So if that private server owned by a company goes away, you own nothing. Right? You owned that thing that was pointed at that server. So people created something called IPFS, which is Interplanetary File Sharing System, which is a distributed server that hosts stuff. Right? It hosts data in the same way that blockchain hosts the Bitcoin ledger, and that's designed to be as effectively bulletproof and secure as the sort of Bitcoin or Wax blockchains themselves, right? Which is designed to be distributed, and if one node or one part of it fails, it's irrelevant. Like we wouldn't even notice. And in fact, that's happened a bunch of times, and none of us noticed. So people are thinking along those terms, like that. You need to have an NFT on a blockchain, which is really, Jen owns this thing. And then the data that's in that thing, not all of it's on the Wax blockchain, right? So it points at an IPFS link that is, the picture your rail, for example, right? And the picture of your rail isn't that interesting to us because we're actually just using the fact that we know your wallet owns this thing to do a bunch of magic-y, whiz bang stuff, right?
Which
And so
is
like both things are right. Both things are really, really important. But when people are buying art as an NFT, and of course Legend's going to be doing that, and we've done that. When you're selling art as an NFT, it is, in my opinion, crucial to make sure that the underlying visual or audio or video data is hosted on something like IPFS that is designed to be, basically completely and totally resistant to failure. Whereas just hosting on one company's server, there's no reason to think that company will be around in 1,000 years, so it's going to go away, right? But if it's on IPFS and that IPFS is run by a bunch of people that are vested to run all the nodes to keep the thing going, right? It's got a probably 2 order of magnitude chance of being around in 1,000 years, as opposed to something that is just one entity.
That is a great answer, and thank you. That makes a lot more sense. So if I'm thinking about NFTs, we've talked about art and music and video and land keys, which if we're getting into, our families watching this, they have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
What kinds of things will be on NFTs a month from now, a year from now?
Okay.
Because it's changing fast.
It really is. Like a month from now and a year from now, I have a good idea. A year from now, it's already hard.
Yeah.
And past that, I have no idea. I did want to point out, like, Nichiren nailed it. He just said, just to read his comment, I thought once you have the art minted with the IPFS code, again, interplanetary file sharing code, then it gets propagated to all other IPFS services. So if one goes down, it just fetches from another IPFS. That's what I was trying to explain, but Nichiren actually did it better, right? So the whole point is that image is not on one server, it's on 100 or 1,000. It's distributed. That's the whole point, right? In the same way that if you nuke one computer that's mining Bitcoin, if you kill that computer, Bitcoin won't have a clue that it happened. It literally won't matter, right? So IPFS is designed to be the same way. If you actually nuke one of their servers, the other 100 are fine. And again, you'll never know. So yeah. So that, anyway, so I'm sorry. I'm going to need you to explain what you were saying again. I just wanted to get that because it's so important. Because again, like most of the people buying $1 million NFTs on Ethereum have no clue that they don't own shit, right? Because if the Rarible server goes down, it's done. And again, but this goes back to the trust quantifiability thing, right? I mean, if Bank of America goes down, you lose all your money, but nobody ever thinks about that, right?
No,
IPFS has more servers than Bank of America, I bet. Or some smaller bank or whatever, but it's that same thing, right? We're so used to trusting that we don't bother. And I think on Ethereum, they're so used to trusting those bits of it that they kind of don't care, right? And so, we get further into the weeds because we're very interested in making sure that this art is actually secure. But some people don't. And I think there's clearly room for variable levels of trust in the system, as we're seeing. And I think people will gravitate towards IPFS and things that they could know are a lot more certain.
I like that idea. I'm thinking it has big potential use in the medical records industry, which is not 100%. Something that anybody thought about.
Yeah.
But if there was a nice, secure medical record somewhere that could be accessible anywhere, that would revolutionize care.
Well, absolutely. And it's semi-private or whatever, right? So like everybody can access. Imagine being able to access all of the medical data, period, as a scientist or a researcher. It's not, it's not attached to anything but the level of, and this is where like data ownership is so vital. And we can get seriously into the weeds of this, because then you would be able to say, okay, I own all this data. I can say which parts of it are public and which parts kind of aren't, right? And so that would have a lot of ramifications. But still, like the data set for people like me, they'd be like, no, like, if the more of us put our data on this, it creates a healthcare network effect that saves lives. Like that would be a measurable
thing. Exactly.
Right?
For research purposes, it would be incredible. And
it
for
really would.
access to care, it would be incredible. But NFTs, that's where I was going. What are they going to look like in a year?
In a year, who's the dude that did I'm Never Gonna Give You Up?
Oh, Rick. What's
Yeah. I was trying to remember his last name. I couldn't do it. I keep thinking of like Rick Roll. That's not his fucking
Yeah,
name.
no, exactly.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
So that music video will be an NFT,
probably.
but run by like whoever owns the stuff from MTV. Not that we're talking to the people who own fucking MTV and every music video they've ever bought, but we are.
But
I mean, that's that, and we're not the only ones, right? Like the like we're talking to some major record labels, and they're talking to people like Universal and Warner and whatever, right? Like when I say that the legend side of things is like moving giant mountains, I'm really not kidding, right? Nothing inked, so like who knows? Like we'll see what happens, but very interesting things are happening.
well,
Other projects are doing the same thing, right? Like I can say this: every single company in the entertainment business is seeing that now they can have the same heyday that vinyl had, because like the margins in the record industry were through the roof when vinyl was around, right? They're going to have those same kind of margins, and they're going to be able to basically package and resell as nostalgia brands everything that ever existed as collectibles, and those collectibles will be usable in places like our metaverse, and others, right, all over the place. So in a year, it will all have like it'll seem like it had been obvious the entire time that literally every piece of media that could be bought as an NFT will be.
It's what fascinates me is that it's an interesting, easy solution to copyright.
Yep.
And you don't need giant big protections, because if I want to give it to my friend or sell it to my friend, I can, but I don't get to keep it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And and where it gets interesting for the artist too is the artist can dictate their secondary market percentage,
Yep.
and make money on the gestalt of their work for the rest of time.
Yep.
Like that to me is like, it's crazy. It's completely
fantastic.
nuts.
It's absolutely fantastic, and how it should be. I mean, if I have something great and then I want to give it to you, I give it to you, you sell it to somebody else, then yes, the original author of the work should get some sort of a royalty for that.
Yeah, every time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like as collectors and as fans, I mean, I'm fine with that. It's like that's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
And again, like we're gonna see record labels I think they'll be the facilitator and the sort of middleman in that anyway, to some extent, right?
Yeah.
But there's gonna be so much value created, I think, for the entire system. That I mean, artists will do it because they're gonna get paid way more. And if they don't have a record label, they could just do it themselves, and they will, because like you can go on Atomic Hub and mint your own NFTs right now. Like I figured it out. It's really not hard. Like an hour of experimentation, you'll figure it out. Yeah, it's up and down the entire chain. It's just going to create more value and more value for the people that are fans, right? If you get, just imagine like 20 years ago getting a Ben Harper NFT. Well, that thing's kind of worth bank now.
Yep.
Right. And and times that by whoever. Right.
Yep. So how then does that gap between where I'm at now learning about this and where, let's say, my mom is at, who's probably full of questions, how do you bridge that gap between full of questions and I will buy your music NFT because record stores don't exist anymore, and so now I have to learn how to crypto?
Yeah. So we showed how to do this with Shipple. Just give them a little taste.
Yep.
Right. That's it. And it, that's so like having a music NFT that, and like I remember like Greg was so, when things are new, he sort of shuts down a little bit, which is hilarious because you never know that, because like we do new things all the time, right? Mm-hmm. When I first told him about NFTs, I was like, right? The same reaction that you will all get when you talk to somebody new about NFTs. So like, right? They don't get it. Fine. So I sat down with them for like a half hour, and I made a Shipple NFT that of one of his, Shipple memes, right? And I just showed him, this is me doing it, right? And it's not like, you can see that I'm not clicking it, like I'm not coding anything. You have to press this instead of press this, like, whatever. There's some steps to get it right, but you can figure it out. You're not going to break anything if you get it wrong or whatever, right? So I'm doing all these things. And then I sent it to his wallet that he had just made. I'm like, oh, cool, I got the wallet. And that's that holy crap, it's real moment, right? the basic one. Now you have that thing, and now I have this thing. And for some reason, like hyper intelligent monkeys with coins, shells, or dollars, it's like, oh, okay, I get that this thing is past hands now, right? But the holy shit moment for him was when he put it up on sale on Atomic Hub, which is a one-click thing, like list this for sale.
Oh yeah.
Right? He listed on sale for 5 wax, and I was waiting for it, and I'm like, I just clicked buy, and he's like, oh shit, somebody bought my thing. I'm like, oh really? Wow. He didn't, of course, look at the wallet. It was the same one that sent it to him, but that was the holy shit moment for him. He's like, this is amazing. I have all these NFTs. And he checks on Tokenhead now all the time, because I sent him some, Alien Worlds NFTs or whatever. He's like, man, my whole NFT stash is worth like $300 now. I'm like, yep, that's how it works. So yeah, you have to, like, it's got to be experienced. Like trying to understand it before you get into it. It's not the right way. Owning a little piece of land in the Uplift, in my opinion, is the right way.
I like the Uplift because you can do so much with it. And the idea of an NFT being a key to a thing, a place, a digital place.
Yeah.
To me, that's explosive. And again, because the technology involved in that will have real world ramifications eventually. I don't know how. I don't know what the future holds, but they're, given industry, and it probably has a use. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
I have a meeting in 2 hours with the head of a major record label that wants to make Music City as a whole map in the Uplift. Like,
that would be so exciting,
right? And that's where artists who are dropping music NFTs are going to have. It's like a community cluster for musicians, right? But then merch stores and NFT artists, and that community network effect then starts to get really, really interesting, right? And then sooner or later, the only way to get this one little piece of merch when you're at somebody's show is to use a QR code that gets into the Uplift, and the only way to get into a show is to actually use a QR code in the Uplift to get into the show, right? So like that, there's now ways for these things to start communicating back and forth. Honestly, it's like somebody's call it a 4-dimensional browser, and that's hard for me to think about, but it's real. Instead of having everyone right now, you're looking at a magic rectangle. It's 2-dimensional, and it's really cool. The Uplift is 3-dimensional, but also 4-dimensional, because it's basically going to be longitudinal in time, and there's going to be history encoded into it, which we're proving out with the cathedral and the gratitude monuments, right? And it's just even at our Minecraft Atari level graphics, kind of vibe, people get it. Like once you've been there and built a thing and had some people join you, it starts to kind of sink in, I think.
So, question here, and one that I certainly didn't know about. Russell explained it to me. Secondary markets.
Yes.
Let's pretend for a moment that I am 100% new to this. What the heck is a secondary market, and why do I care?
Yeah, this is good cake, because this will retire a lot of the people that are, and retire, set financially free is a much more thing. A lot of the people that are probably watching this right now, which is a lot of fun for me. So when you exit Limbo, actually, there's some friends of ours now, right? They're in the community cluster in Genesis. It's just interestingly enough, we teamed them up with the alpacas because they didn't have communities that were big enough to kind of get their own, right? Mm-hmm. It was like one of the last ones, wherever. And I mean, they're both decently sized now, but it turns out the family that is behind alpacas, and they're adorable. There's actually interviews with them on this channel that you can go and watch. I highly recommend it. They built Nafty blocks, which is like a pack technology that everybody was trying to get from Atomic Hub, and you could buy from them for $5,000. And they're just like, no, you guys have it. It's good. Right. And it just democratized the whole process. So Exit Limbo used them, and now because they're friends now or whatever. So Exit Limbo does a pack drop, I think 48 hours ago or whatever, right? Sells out 5 seconds. Why? Because everybody wants it. And 5 seconds later, after there's no more, somebody's willing to pay $1 more for it than when you bought it. And it's usually not $1, it's usually like 50 to 100% more. and that's the secondary market, right? So you buy something from the Uplift when we do our drop, and we're gonna sell out eventually of whatever it is that we're doing, and a minute later, somebody's gonna be like, well, I want that, and I know it was only $100 before, but I'll pay 110, right? Or 115, and that doesn't go to us, that goes to you, right? So that starts to get pretty interesting, and why bots were buying up literally everything that's dropped by anyone, because then they could basically, it's like, they're like ticket scalpers, right? They'll come in and buy as much of a supply of Bitcoin Origins, for example, as they possibly can, and then resell it, and make tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, right? Which is why you see us doing the rate limiters, and like you can only have so many per account, and all the kind of thing to make sure that it gets in the most hands as possible, right? Because of course we would much rather see our community be reaping those benefits as opposed to a farm and wherever.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So okay, so I buy rail keys from the Uplift.
Yes.
Then I sell those rail keys for twice what I paid for them, because I can.
I mean, that would be a really cheap thing right now.
I think, hey, that's great.
Yeah.
Not, hey, I lost out on a really fun building opportunity. Why is anybody doing that? But my opinions aside, I sell them, I get money. How does that benefit you?
So there is a 9% secondary market fee or royalty that we have attached in the Uplift for that stuff. And what's really interesting is that a significant percentage of that is going to go into the rewards pool all the time. And the rest of it is going to make sure that all the servers' lights are on 1,000 years from now.
Which is
right. So we're setting, I'm like brainstorming and setting up financial instruments now, like a month and a half in, so that as long as there is any economic activity anywhere on any of these servers, it's feeding a fund that's keeping the lights on and enhancing the technology and right,
which is great. Oh, I had a thought and then I lost it. This is disappointing. You said something and I wanted to follow up with a question. So there's a royalty and it feeds the keeping the lights on the rewards pool. That's where I was going with this. How many people are doing things similar to what you're doing in terms of a rewards pool? Is this kind of like a different thing, a big new thing, a thing everybody's into?
Well, Chirp was kind of playing with this idea. I think as far as metaverses are concerned, I haven't heard, and again, other people have more experience with these other metaverses than I do, so by all means let us know if people are doing that. But the whole play to earn sector is kind of blowing up, on top of NFTs, on top of the whole metaverse space, right? So Aether is actually a really good example of that. Alien Worlds is a great example of that. And there's a few others, and those are kind of like just games, right? As far as like then attaching that into a metaverse, I haven't seen anyone else doing that yet.
Okay, interesting. So here's another one then. If we were talking about copyright, and let's say, so you're a musician, you drop your NFT record and you retain the copyright. In the case of you as the single musician, you get all the secondary market royalties. So however many times that is bought and sold, you get something.
Yep.
In the case of where there's a record company involved, then it sort of stays similar.
Let me because I saw Jim was having some questions about this as well. So the account, I just want to get super specifics. People get this at a very granular level. The account that mints the NFT sets that secondary market price for that collection, right? So if you are an artist and you create a Wax account and you create a collection on that account, you can pick a number between like 2 and 14 or whatever it is, right? And then that account, sells all these NFTs, great. And then after that, anytime those NFTs get bought or sold, then say, that 9%, the way that we've said it, goes back to that account. Now, that account might be owned by an artist. It might be owned by a record label who is managing that artist, or it might be owned by the Uplift, right? So the Uplift mints a bunch of NFTs, and we sell those NFTs. Now, when you guys buy or sell them, that secondary market percentage comes back to us. Now, it should be noted as well, Atomic Hub takes a percentage, right? So when we say 9%, people are going to wonder, like, why is it 14? 2% goes to Atomic Hub, and 2% actually goes to Wax. And it's something really important to understand about Wax. The Wax DeFi that you can find in your Wax cloud wallet, you need Ethereum to play with it, but it's if you have enough money, it's like I put a little position in, which is where it gets interesting. I think is that 1% of all of the NFT sales that happen burn the Wax. They get rid of it. So the amount of Wax that's in the universe is slowly edging down, even though as they're distributing it. So it's that part's interesting. And then of course 1% of all NFT sales actually goes into a pool that is then shared amongst all the people that are participating in that DeFi. So that that's where all that stuff. And then of course the 2% going to Atomic Hub because they built Atomic Hub and they deserve some money.
And they're the marketplace that sells the NFTs.
Right.
Or
yeah. Yeah, exactly. They built the whole thing. So that's the thing. So whatever account mints those NFTs and sets that thing, that's where that secondary market percentage goes back to. So if you're the artist and you create a collection and you mint some NFTs, that royalty or secondary market percentage is going to come back to you.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's powerful. And again, when artists, big and small, started to understand that, and I don't think like the vast majority of them still have no clue that it's even possible. This is why, when the rest of cryptocurrency kind of inevitably goes into another crypto winter, which happens in cycles. It's all about Bitcoin having its whole story. NFTs, I don't think are going to slow down at all, which is going to be very, very interesting to see how that, plays out in the marketplace as a whole, because companies are just starting to figure this out and they're not going to stop once they figure it out. And that's going to be tens of billions in value created for the next few years, maybe more.
That's incredible. One last technical question, and then we'll probably wrap up. You talked about burning wax. How do I burn something that's not physical? I can't light it on fire.
Yeah, so NFTs can be given this attribute that says, okay, is this burnable or not? And what that means is it deletable or not? Right? So the person that owns that NFT has the capacity to burn it. Nobody else does. Right? So there's and I guess like as an interesting sort of aside, right? We just did this snapshot to look at who had all the NFTs that we could send probes to, basically, right? So that's another interesting thing. Like when you are an artist and you can target every single person that bought your first CD 10 years from now, that's very interesting, right? And you can send them all another NFT. Like Jen, I could show you how to do that in an hour, right? So like that is a fascinating thing. You could do something like, okay, I have this probe. I'm going to use this probe to pick a piece of land in Genesis, right? That action on our website burns the NFT, but we can't do it. You have to basically go to that website and say, okay, I'm doing this process. I'm going to use up this, burn this NFT, in this process, and then it happens. One of the other, in the UpliftArt did this a bunch. In the Series 1 drop and a bunch of the other ones, if you get a collection, like a full collection of the commons, that might be 20 NFTs or whatever. If you have them all, you could put them into a contract. It just basically put them into a box on a website and click burn, and it would destroy them all. But then you'd get a much more valuable, higher rarity one, right? Basically, like one that there's far less of, that like looks cooler, right? And so that gamification angle, is part of that too. And this is us experimenting with that functionality, right? There's going to be like what that's going to look like in a year. I couldn't even remotely tell you. I think people are coming up with new ideas around that every 5 minutes.
That's exciting and fantastic. So I found 2 more questions, which are good because knowing the audience is also good. I think we should probably start with what's the uplift and then delve into does Schipul still exist and where is it going? What's it doing? So,
Okay, so what is the uplift?
30
Holy,
seconds
30
or
seconds.
less. Short version.
Go watch Ready Player One. This is our first version of it.
Okay. For anybody who hates watching things,
Read
what's
the
your
book.
second? Read the book. Okay. Ready Player One.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just it's for people that understand that it becomes kind of the easiest thing, right? So instead of playing a video game or being in a browser or being in a chat room, you're in a place where you can do things with people, and it's people ask me like, what's the point of having one of these pieces of land if you're a business or whatever, right? Or an artist, right? It's equal parts. Canvas, storefront, and gallery and billboard. But it's basically in some cases downtown or in Disneyland, right? Like because we can gamify the entire experience, and have it be what is now known as a metaverse, right? It's like taking this 3-dimensional experience that we're having as human beings and porting that into a 3-dimensional experience in a video game. And it's interesting, right? Even the game itself, we're looking at it on a magic 2-dimensional rectangle. It's only a matter of time before that goes away as well, when we start bootstrapping into VR and use the Neuralink to just jack it right into our brains.
And this is one of those moments too where we should probably also mention that the game we're talking about is actually Minecraft. It's well known. It's been around for years. And a lot of people know it, love it, play it. So it's not a completely unfamiliar experience to a lot of people.
Right.
Certainly not kids.
Yeah, right.
Those of us who didn't grow up with it necessarily, it's not brand new. So
right.
if and Minecraft kind of revolutionized the crafting games too. It started it. So when you think about it that way, you're looking at something that is kind of foundational in that sense. And
it is. Yeah, like pulling that off the shelf. And again, they made it open source enough so that we could do it, right? And that was like the original Mojang vision for it. If we'd had to build this from proprietary like Decentraland and CryptoVoxels and other teams have done, it probably wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah. Because me, being able to get people excited about it, that's one thing, but I with Minecraft could get people to the holy shit this is real moment pretty fast, right? We're like, frankly, a lot faster than I thought. Right? So
it's Minecraft,
right? Well, it's Minecraft, and then people could get in and realize, wait a minute, like I can build here, I can't build over here. That's interesting, right? And most of the time that actually annoys people, but then they're like, wait a minute, that means nobody can build on my land, and then and then we can actually start playing around with those ideas at sort of at a base level, and then people would believe it, right? If I was going around talking to well, I mean, there's no fucking way I'd be talking to the people I'm talking to right now if I couldn't send people pictures of the cathedral or the blue room with the QR codes, and right. So hats off to all the companies that actually were able to gather the resources and the talent to start building these things from the ground up. Luckily, we're going to get some really, really good funding, and then be able to build a team, on top of stuff, because we basically built a proof of concept.
That's kind of fantastic. So, last question: how does Schipul factor into this?
So, I gave Schipul away. To again, it was a cryptocurrency that I founded as a joke that very quickly became not a joke, which was very educational for me. People took it really seriously, which was a lot of fun. So Bull Schipul's and the entire core team that started building out the community, which was everything for Schipul. Like there's no tech involved; it's just a token. They basically now have all of it and have access to it. I created the Schipul memes brand on Atomica to start playing around with those ideas, because every Schipul meme out there, and there are thousands probably, right? I want them all to be NFTs like that. I wanted to own them myself, so I started making that out. And of course, we got so busy that I hadn't thought about it in a long time. And Greg obviously understood NFTs now, and Suji understands NFTs now, and Bull Shipple showed back up, and I'm like, okay, take it and go. Now, the Shipple token, we'll talk about that in a second. Shipple memes is where it's at. That, outfit is going to do amazing things with NFTs. And right now, in my opinion, is more interesting than the actual Shipple token itself. But where I see the Shipple token going, I see a bridge getting created in the near future where you're going to be able to pull it off of Vios and put it onto Wax. So it'll show up in your Wax Cloud account or in Alcor or in all the things that we're using all the time. And I would be very amazed if it wasn't a strong position in the Uplift rewards pool 6 months from now. And we'll see. Like, that might not happen, but like, I don't understand why it wouldn't. And even if it wasn't in the rewards pool, because of the API signal thing Nicharan was talking about, like, we're going to be writing things to the blockchain so that absolutely anybody who wanted to make that could make that, right? If somebody's in Chicken Ka and they punch a sign, they get some Shipple or whatever, right? That's coming. And that actually might come really fast, which is like, whoa. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And so then we can do things in game and get rewards that we can spend in game potentially for things that people are selling, or we could save it, we can trade it, and then trade it for the wax that trades to the Bitcoin that trades to the money that ends up in my bank account that keeps the lights on at my house.
Right. Well, and look out for the wax credit card, because that's coming, right? Like, those steps are in the way right now. That won't always be the case. So if I could wave my magic wand, and like, the way Shipple would exist is absolutely as that. Like, the people that are part of the Shipple family, when you walk onto their land, you're getting some Shipple, right? And there will be a Shipple only marketplace for Shipple memes. You'll be able to stake Shipple to get stuff, probably more Shipple memes, right? Because we're seeing that gamified experience go all over the place. There should be an area that is run by a Shipple DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, using it as the governance token. So the more Shipple you have, the more votes you have. And so, like, it to me, that token just represents the community that was around it, right? And in fact, that's true of every single token, including the dollar. And so the technologies are becoming, kind of more democratic, meaning more people have access to them all the time. And we're going to make sure that there are things that anyone can plug into with the Uplift that will allow them to do all sorts of cool shit, including distribute Shipple or, use it in some meaningful way. I do think, at least initially, when the market starts up, we're going to only be able to have one token that is like the buyable, sellable, tradable thing, right? Whether that's Wax or Aether or, a token that we create ourselves, which is a possibility. It'll just be one, but then you'll just be able to go to Alcor and fund a liquidity swap or do whatever, right? Because that part's used to be hard, and now it's just easy. Like, if communities want to create that market, they just can.
It actually was really easy. I was surprised by that. Finding Alcor was a lot less easy, but once I found it, swapping one for another was simple.
Yeah.
And you're talking to somebody who has no clue what I'm looking at most of the time when it comes to the crypto side of things.
The swap, I mean, you hit the swap button and you want, to turn Aether into Wax. It's just put number in here and then click go, and it just makes the thing happen.
It does it. And then you have the Wax, and wow, that was easy. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I know I said one last question, for real though, because I have to go too. How do I get over that feeling of I'm taking something that shouldn't have a value? I don't understand why this crypto has a value, because people believe in it, and that's kind of like either magic or religion, and I'm uneasy about that. And then I swap it and it gives me the thing that also shouldn't have a value, that I traded for things that don't have a value, and now I've got money. How do I work my head around that?
You made a bunch of assumptions in that
framing. I did.
That aren't real.
But how do I figure out that they're not real? Because that's your department. You're the give me the real experience type. So how do I get?
And this is why it goes down to, like, it's trust and belief or whatever, right?
Well, yeah.
and it's encoded now. If you swap, because you can see where this actually breaks down, right?
Okay.
If and that actually makes it more real to me. You go to the Aether wax thing, right? They're doing like a 500,000 wax in volume every day. That's a 500,000 wax that's getting traded for Aether back and forth, every 24 hours. That's a lot of belief in both wax and Aether, measurable.
Yes.
In the number, right? Like people want wax at this degree, they want Aether at this degree. They're willing to trade it with each other, right? That is not. It has nothing to do with whether you believe it or not. That's real.
It is happening. I can see
right?
that.
That's exactly it, and
So.
that's all the real that you'll ever get. If you try and anytime anyone ever is like, "What's the dollar?" It's backed by gold. No, it's not. It hasn't been backed by gold since the 70s. It's backed by nothing. The only reason why a Canadian dollar will buy you the amount of milk that it will is because you believe it will, and the people that produce the milk and sell the milk believe it will, and that's it. That's all the marbles. That's the whole thing. That's why this is so fascinating, because now we get to start playing in that Lego pit, right? What other assumptions have we been making? And so let's knock those down and see what we can, build back up from it. Turns out a lot.
And all of this relates to where we started. What do you actually need to live? Do you need a house? Do you need an apartment? Do you need a dollar?
Do you think that's air you're breathing? It is. It's air.
So.
It is. It was a Matrix quote, but yes. But it really is.
There are more questions than answers, and then that's interesting too. But that's for a whole other time. I think we'll get there, and a few weeks from now, maybe we should talk again, because I'll have more questions.
Yeah, no, I would love that. And I mean, like I've seen the slate of people you're going to be talking to over the next little while, and they're all good. Did you book Tuttle yet?
No, she's been proving hard to get a hold of. Maybe she's listening.
I know her pretty well. I'll hook you up. No, I'll get her in the Telegram chat, and we're gonna get you in Slack pretty soon too, so we'll get that sorted out.
That'd be great.
But I'm gonna tune in just to see you ninja the question, or because that's. And I mean, you want to like seriously, every single answer I gave, she'll give a much smarter one on all the technical stuff, on all the everything. That interview, I'm gonna make it happen because I want to see it.
I think it's interesting, and the more it gets tied to real world anything for anyone to try and wrap their head around, the faster it gets adopted.
When Cardi B drops NFTs and people start buying them, I mean, Paris Hilton is doing it right now, and apparently, I was making fun. Yeah, I was making fun of Paris Hilton. Apparently, she knows her shit, and she's been doing this for about 1.5 years, right? It was like, yeah.
Well, okay then.
So yeah, it we're at the knee of the curve, so it looks like nothing is going on, right? And we kind of know, and we're sort of seeing this interesting swing. But like the company that is it like, oh man, I can't remember the name of it. It's not Dap Radar. Sorry, some name like Rockwell, our CEO, was talking about it today. Basically, who he sees as our biggest competitor on the Legend side, the big building behind us. They just got valued at $7.3 billion. So that's $7.3 billion of investor money. That's like, I believe this. I mean, Decentraland, between the land in Decentraland and the mana, which is the coin that they created that kind of manages the whole thing, right? $3 billion market cap.
And Decentraland is another game?
It's like a metaverse thing, right? Where the only difference thing is that you can't mine anything, and if you want a light switch, it pays like you need to pay like 10,000 mana or something like that, right? Like we've been busting Decentraland's balls. Like they're breaking amazing ground. The onboarding process for Decentraland is gorgeous. Like they're pros, right? But there's still only 12,000 users there total, which is incredible. And like we're gonna pass that like it's stopped. I think. Could be wrong.
I hope. It's fun.
It is. Either way, yeah, like even if we don't, if we don't pass them, it's because they're gonna start scaling very, very quickly. But they're on Ethereum, so they're kind of, they're gonna have to figure out a side chain really quickly because Ethereum sucks donkey.
Well, okay then.
Just slow and expensive. Yeah, you can't like if you get an Ethereum NFT, for $100. You try and send it. It might cost you $100 to send it. It's garbage. Like, it's a useless blockchain as far as I'm concerned. It's insane.
So then there's a whole other talk about fees and stuff. There's so much to learn.
Well, that's like that. Yeah, they're what's known as a proof of work chain. So miners, people running the network, charge that, right? And you actually can't do that many transactions at a time on Ethereum. So the more transactions are trying to pile into smaller and smaller spaces, the more expensive they become. Or you can just be on Wax where it's like so close to free, no one ever notices that there's a cost.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, that's why up the chain, up the comments. Nichiren was talking about the fact that Engine, is creating a sidechain. When I found out that they were only using Ethereum, that's when I started looking elsewhere and decided not to use them at all. And this is the thing: they're creating a sidechain that's awesome, and that might work. But as a developer of a company, it's an intense, insane risk to me that people aren't using the technology that already works. And I mean, they might make it work, but they also might completely fail. And that's like an existential risk that is far greater than will Microsoft like us or not.
Fair. Well, this has been fun. I've learned a lot, and I hope other people have too. And, maybe this will make all of us seem slightly more approachable and less crazy. That's my goal.
Nailed it. Well, I don't know about more approachable and less crazy, but that'll be good.
Yeah.
So if you are serious about doing this all the time, I'm just gonna have to start booking the time that you're doing this off, so that I can just watch it.
Well, it seems to be all over the map depending on everybody's schedules, and to my surprise and delight, people are from all over the world. So that's going to be interesting too.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I just want to hit Nichiren's comment. Ethereum is changing how the miners get paid. It will be a fixed price. I will find the doc that was just released. Here's the thing. Those miners have to sign off on that. And if they don't, they're just going to fork. Right. And so like they're also supposed to be moving to proof of stake. And some people will move to proof of stake and some won't. Again, nobody actually knows if any of that will work or if the miners are going to go for it. And they might, as an attempt to stop the people from moving to the proof of stake thing. Like Ethereum is going to be a giant mess for at least a year and maybe for a lot longer. And Wax works right now. Right. You know what I mean? Like that's why from my perspective of like, where are we going to build? I will never build on Ethereum. And when I say never, 5 years from now, it might be the whiz bang that they have been promising for 5 years that it would be. It's not. And it keeps getting worse. So they keep saying that it's going to get better. And I'm now part of the show me plan. Like when transaction costs there are $2, call me. Until then, I'll never have anything to do with Ethereum. And no one should. Rant over.
I understood about half of that.
Okay.
And I'm freely admitting that just,
no, it's good. And I would actually
comfort zone. So
and Nichiren, so learning about this myself, I can't remember the dude's name, the guy that created Ethereum. Super fucking weirdo. Maybe one of the smarter people on the face of the earth. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Vitalik is his name. Wears like kitty unicorn t-shirts all the time. It's iconic. This guy's awesome. So he goes on Tim Ferriss, the podcast. And that's where I learned about everything that they're trying to do. And he's very confident that it'll work. And they talk down, at other chains or whatever, right? They're the chain that has a lot of money right now. So, they're full of a lot of hubris. But when you actually talk to technologists and giant brands, no one's going there because they can't afford it. Right. And so who knows? Yeah. Even ETH is best for biz, not gaming. Tell that to EOS and Profi, right? They're not actually like at all, right? People are just so used to believing that Ethereum is the smart contract thing, as I did for a long time, that they're not looking at what's coming behind it. And don't even get me started on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is DOS. Like everybody thinks that Bitcoin is the absolute best technology ever. It was an amazing proof of concept, just like DOS was back in the 80s for computing. Bitcoin will go away. Now you can end the show.
Well, okay. This has been fun. We'll
dropping bombs. And for the record, I still love Bitcoin and I always will.
Well, this has been fun and we should definitely do it again. And that's that. What a whirlwind. I hope everybody else learned just even half as much as I did because this is great.
All right. So how do we end yours? Do we do the chop? Do we do something else?
Oh no, there should be something. I hadn't even thought about an ending. I was too busy trying to figure out how to not be completely scared out of my mind to say hello.
You nailed it. And seriously, with it, yeah, I think everyone, if you feel like chiming in, message J Bar in the game or the Upliftian Banksy on Telegram. Because I had a blast. And this is my channel. So, it was fun to just be under the light. Any observation? You should totally have Jen on your show.
That's a terrifying prospect.
Yeah,
Probably fun.
As an awesome artist and builder, and now soon to be picture installer and journalist in residence at the Uplift.
I like this plan. This sounds great.
All right,
I'm
let's
in.
do it up.
Okay. And on that note, see y'all later. We'll be back at I don't know what time because I can't remember with Cowie.
Yep.
Is that how I pronounce his name?
Yep, Kawimoto.
Kawimoto. I
Yep,
might have lots of questions because
Yep.
that's what I do.
Like how you got a Jedi name is what I want to know.
Kinda, yeah. That
Right,
one might have made my list, but that's a good one too.
All right. I think his mom just gave it to him. Like she was just passing him out.
Probably.
All
All right. Well, here we go.
Okay.
Bye. Till later.